Steve Schneider.
Yes, sir.
Welcome to the Domestic Dad Podcast.
Flattered and honored to be here.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
I remember going back to, we were in a car dealership service lot talking about this. The next thing you know, both of our cars are done and we're still talking. So,
And for like another hour.
It was a long time, but it was so good.
Yeah.
I remember leaving there going, wow, that was crazy how that works out.
Yeah, it is. When you allow yourself to be put in the right places, you get put in the right places in front of the right people at the right time. And I think this is kind of one of those, like, just the culminating moments of that, right? So
I'd agree with that.
Okay. So Steve, my neighbor, my domestic dad friend.
That's right.
Right. One of the just from the outside looking in at you, you are like one of the best dads I've ever seen in operation. And it's awesome to watch because your kids adore you and you, like, I don't know, man,
I appreciate that. It's an interesting story there. Because it was never one of those things I necessarily wanted to be.
Wow.
I actually told people, I said, I don't plan on ever having kids. This is back when I was in my early 20s, and I remember joking about it. They're like, "Oh man, kids are the best thing." I was like, "Yeah, I think you're being selfish, because what's your reason for having kids?" And so they're like, "Well, they can take care of you when you're older." I said, "Yep, you're being selfish." I said, "This world right now, you really want to bring kids into this world?" I said, "Yeah, if it happens, it happens." I always thought, I'll make a good dad, but it's never something I never aspired to.
Yeah.
And it is, I can easily say, before we had kids and before we even knew we wanted kids, I said, uncle is the best title in the world. You get all the benefit. In my ignorance, I say you get all the benefits without all the hassle and responsibility.
Yeah, no, that's true. Because you don't have to put them to bed. You don't have to do all the things. You get to see them when it's convenient for you to see them.
Convenience and but at the same time it doesn't hold a candle in the wind.
No.
It's dad. And so I'm so thankful that God was merciful to be okay on my ignorance there. So
yeah,
it was never expected. But I always thought I was always that. There was an old Richard Pryor movie, The Toy. He was a toy to these kids, and I always kind of felt I'm going to be basically a big toy to my kids. Got the big jungle gym and all this. But as I got older and started recognizing, no, you're pouring into somebody, you're helping to shape somebody's life, and that's the key word, helping. You can't shape them,
right?
You indirectly you do, but
yeah. You can create a model for them, but you can't. That's not going to be exactly who they are.
Right.
Oh man, I'd love to get into that here in a little bit. But before we do, tell me about you, man. Tell me, like, where did you come from? Because we didn't know each other growing up. I met you in my late 30s. You know what I mean? And so I don't know a whole lot about you. Where did Steve Schneider come from? What was childhood like for you, man?
Boy, try to keep this on the brief side of that. Originally from Chicago.
Okay.
My parents went to Wartburg College a long time ago. My dad took over my grandfather's business in Cicero, Chicago. In Cicero, it was they became a war machine during the World War II and created ammunitions and all that. They were a sheet metal shop, and all kinds of different things moved them to Iowa. They moved a 500 employee business to Mason City, Iowa. That's a huge shift. Yeah. And I grew up thinking my dad was the most amazing person in the world. I wanted to be my dad. I wanted to run that company. I wanted to be in his position. I wanted to follow in the family business. Until about 8th grade, that's what my dream was. I'm going to run the business. I'm going to be my dad. Now, I haven't thought about that in a long time. I was a good kid. I was short. I'm just going to say kind of squatty. Got teased a lot. And so I had a very negative self-image of myself personally. But I was always the good kid. My brother and sister had a tendency to go the other direction. And I never wanted to cause that kind of pain and suffering to my mom, which gets to the point my parents were divorced when I was about 5 years old.
Okay.
When they moved here, they separated. They never really told me why. I always just kind of assumed that their lives grew apart. They had different desires. It wasn't until my mom passed about 2.5 years ago, he cheated on her repeatedly. And yeah, and that was kind of an eye-opener. For a long time, I put my dad on a pedestal. For the last 15, 20 years, it hasn't been like that. Where I started to witness things and going, okay, the dad that I've put on this pedestal was the fun dad.
Yeah.
So to the divorced, the guys that have been a part of divorce and such, that are dads right now going through a divorce, watch out for being the fun dad. Because actually, I'm not sure if I'm going to say this quite right, but a lot of the wives out there are the ones taking care of the kids. They get the custody, and then all their dad is the fun dad.
Yeah.
You're missing out, buddy.
Yeah.
But that was my dad. I mean, he was focused in his world. He was traveling all around the world, see me on the weekends. He'd fly me out to Phoenix to go see him. And I thought I had the best world best dad, the best world, all this kind of stuff. I had good gifts from him. But the funny thing was as I got older, I realized I missed out.
Yeah, there was something missing there, huh?
Yeah. We'd work on model trains and all that kind of stuff over the weekends. But he was never quite present. But the funny thing is, as I look back, and as much as I've judged my dad he was an alcoholic. My brother and my sister really abused alcohol. And so I grew up with large parties with massive amounts of alcohol.
Yeah.
And
were you a drinker?
No. I mean, I tried to be a bad boy.
Yeah.
I mean, I tried to hang out with some of the guys that would get drinking and all this kind of stuff, but I always felt guilty. It wasn't until after high school, I remember that would have been graduation year for high school. We went and rented a room, and I just got absolutely blistered drunk with tequila. I didn't really drink much tequila after that since, but
yeah, that'll leave a lasting effect on you.
Yeah, you would have thought I learned my lesson because I was really stupid. I made some really poor choices.
Yeah.
I didn't. I continued to go down that road and think that was what alcohol was. I never was taught that alcohol can be a safe thing. And to this day, I'm not saying that I think alcohol can be safe. All right, so to the listeners, I can sometimes get a little preachy. Everything is permissible, but not everything is beneficial. Changed everything.
Yeah.
I can never look back on one story and say, man, I had the best idea when I was drunk. Man, I had a beer and had this idea. Never happened. I can only look back and see a chain of misery and poor choices, poor things I said. Almost got married because of some of this stuff to somebody that would have been absolute destruction to me.
Oh my gosh.
All because of drinking. And so I can look back on it and say, okay, it might be okay. And this is not a judgment for anybody else, but you have to make those judgments, those rules for you. It's not a law I can't drink.
Yeah.
It's my own personal rule. There's a difference is, okay, the speed limit down this road is, we'll say down that other road over there is like 55 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
It's icy. I can technically drive 55. It's not wise. It's really icy, so I'm going to go 25.
Yeah.
That's my rule that I put in place for me.
Yeah, there you go.
Next guy can come down 55. It's up to them, the ramifications of it.
Yep.
Okay, bad example because there's other people in the road. But with the drinking, and I've been clean and sober now for 19 years.
Wow.
Met my wife, sorry, we're going to scatter all over the place.
Yeah, I know. It was okay. We're going to bounce. We're going to bounce a little bit.
Yeah, so appreciate you bouncing with me. So 19 years ago, actually on, I believe it was July 29th, I set up on a blind date. And at that blind date, I believe in visions. God's given me lots of visions in my world. And whenever God starts to ask a question, that's when I know something big's going to happen. When he gives me a vision, that's when I feel like he's asking me to make a choice. The question requires me usually is saying, hey, I don't like what you're doing. What are you doing? Kind of that thing.
Uh-huh.
When he gives me a vision.
I've had many of those.
Yeah. When he's given me a vision, it's more along the lines of pick what you want, man. And so on that first date with I had just gotten out of I'm going to be cautious about, I say it, a really bad relationship that was destructive.
Yeah.
I tried to marry this woman, and let's just say it was the opposite of everything my wife embodies now. And
your wife is awesome, by the way.
She's amazing. I still don't know how it all happened other than God. I mean, when somebody talks about, how do you know God loves you? I look at my wife. I look at 19 years ago, how he picked me up out of the worst case. I've been a believer my entire life. I was an acolyte in a Lutheran church growing up. I loved going up there, but that didn't stop me from messing up my life, trying to being a 65 drink a week person, which I don't even know if that's big or not. I've judged my dad for being an alcoholic at 28 drinks a week.
Yeah. Yeah. What were you like when you would drink at that capacity? You were fun.
I was the fun guy.
Yeah.
There's a guy still lives here in town, good friend of mine still. He says, I'll never forget, about a year after it, he says, Steve, I support you in what you're doing, but we really miss fun Steve, because you said some really stupid stuff.
Yeah.
But it was always fun.
Yeah, because that filter gets removed, right?
Yeah. I lose those inhibitions. I'm usually a very introverted guy. But I don't know what it was. I was a happy guy. I was never a mean guy like that.
What were some major obstacles that using at that capacity or drinking at that capacity presented for you?
The interesting thing, I've heard this term as a functioning alcoholic. If you knew who I was at that time, if you knew me at that time, there's only probably a few people that really knew what was going on in the background. I was a leader at the church in my youth ministries while being a functioning alcoholic. I was never drinking around them. I had enough sense to not do that. Whether that's good or bad, I don't know. I mean, I've justified. I had 2 lives.
Yeah.
And that's the interesting thing is when you bring it out into the light, most of the time when you're drinking, I think one of the biggest things is to make a realization is, this isn't what I want. This isn't who I am. And at the moment you feel like you have to hide it, because I was also a smoker, 2 packs a day smoker.
Yeah.
All of it stopped at the same time. Cold turkey. By the way, I just finished that thing is I saw 3 people in front of me, the guy I'd become, the guy this lady would want to marry, and the guy I'd always wanted to be. How you can see that in your mind's eye, I have no idea, but somehow God makes it happen. And I was ashamed of the guy I'd become. And the other 2 guys, I said, there's no chance. I mean, she pulled up in her Hummer. I pulled up in my little Subaru. I was so out of my league. But I looked at those 2 guys. I said, they look really similar. And I was so ashamed at what that guy had become. And I decided I'm going to chase that guy the rest of my life. But this is the amazing thing now is I look back 19 years later, and I go, that guy, he's chasing me. I didn't even realize that would be possible. My expectations of myself were kept so low because I kept hindering myself through drinking, smoking, bad choices, finding whatever the fun was. I don't know. I mean, like some people are doing it to cope. A lot of people drink to cope, smoke to cope. I didn't. I don't even know what I was doing. It was just, this is where we shape our kids' lives. I didn't even realize that was just normal life. You come home, you have a few drinks. You go out, you hit it hard. What's wrong with that? That's
and especially coming from having a fun dad who drank often, that was what was modeled for you.
I went to AA meetings with my brother when he was in 8th grade.
Yeah.
But I was in 8th grade. I'm sorry. I was in 8th grade.
Your brother was how old?
He would have been 5 years. He was 4 years older than me.
Yeah. So he's in his upper teens.
Older. Yeah. So he would have been, he would have been like a senior in college, just out of high school. Just out of high school.
Yeah. Interesting. That's very interesting.
And then I'd hear stories about him blacking out and finding out, being in his car in the ditch.
Did you have a good relationship with your brother?
Yeah.
So it was somebody also that you modeled,
oh,
right?
he looked like Jim Morrison from the Doors. I always admired him. He was an amazing guy.
Yeah.
But again, I'm modeling myself after somebody who had their own challenges.
Yep. Not the man that you wanted to be who you eventually wanted to be, but a different guy. There was a different character that you were trying to become in your life at that time. And when you saw those 3 versions of yourself, you were like, oh, this isn't going to work.
These 2 guys don't look anything like anybody I've seen. My idea of success in life has been so misguided.
Yeah.
And that was a big, big deal. And so I said, there's no chance she's ever going to stick with me. So, but here's the thing. I need to make a big change. And to be honest, about 30 days before that, when I found out that she went off and married her ex-boyfriend 30 days prior, I was at the most humiliating spot in my life. I had hit what I would call rock bottom. Everybody has their own different rock bottom. It wasn't like found myself in prison or anything else like that, but I was humiliated. I was lost. I was a believer. And the most amazing thing happened. Like, a lot of people talk about salvation and all that kind of stuff being a crutch, or, I think a true salvation is one of the most humble experiences you'll ever have. I went back to that church I was a youth director at, and I told him, I said, hey, I'm not going anywhere anymore. I am in no position to lead anybody in the faith. But I give up. I told God, I said, I give up. I've made an absolute mess of my life. I'm humiliated. And I've chased a girl all this time. And he says, have you learned your lesson yet? And so this is where that, in hearing these past ones about advice, Dad, when he starts asking questions, have you learned the lesson yet? I was like, okay, what's the lesson? He says, everything you put above me will destroy you. Everything you put below me has the opportunity to bless you. Yeah. You've always chased that relationship with a girl. So here's the thing is, the Domestic Dad Project, I love the concept behind it. But one of the things that, as I was listening to some of the past podcasts, is alcohol, smoking, drugs. Girls are also in that.
Huge part of that.
It is
huge part of that.
Part of it that is taking you off the real person that you were intended to be.
Yeah.
And so he says, everything below you has the opportunity to bless you. And so therefore, you've always put this relationship with a girl above me.
Yeah.
And so even if they were a good girl, they would have destroyed you because you put them above me. Have you finally learned this lesson? I said, yes, sir, I have. He says, we'll find out. and he even with my wife, we had 3 instances, I remember, where I said, okay, I remember pulling into her driveway. We were dating at the time. I said, all right, I don't care what happens on the way out of here. I'm coming in here. I am true to you. If I come out of here single, so be it. As long as it's you and me. I'm not single. I told you I'd be okay if it's just you and me for the rest of my life. I swore off women for, that was July 2nd, 19 years ago. I just said, I'm going to be single for the rest of my life. Okay, if it's a monk you want, it's a monk you get.
Yeah.
30 days later, he sets me up with a blind date with my now wife. We've been married for 15 years, and I am so blessed beyond measure. But again, I quit everything 30 days prior.
Palms up.
Yeah, and then, gave up. But that opportunity of saying, look, I don't care what else happens as long as you and I are good. I know I trust you. It's still going to be painful, but I trust that you got me. And so I remember another one we were working on, and we ended up solving that fight. Just a piece came in. I mean, it got to the edge, and all of a sudden a piece hit the room. I swear he was testing me. I don't even know what it was about. Another one was I was hooking up a sound system. I hooked up that sound system 7 times. 7 times, and I couldn't get it to work. And I remember, all right, God, this is getting really rough, and I'm out of here. But I'm not ending on failure, so I'm going to get the sound system working. The moment the sound system works, I'm out.
Yep.
Back to singlehood. It's you and me, baby. And all of a sudden, probably about 2 minutes into that, peace. Absolute peace in the atmosphere. Everything's resolved. And he goes, hey, by the way, this is a floor model. What do you mean floor model? He says, presentation mode. It's on mute. I've never seen this. It's a display model at the store, and you go into settings, and there's a model thing that says in there, display mode. The mute was off. I click off the mute, everything works. How in the world? Again, that's what I'm saying. He's testing me. He's testing me to say, hey, do you really care about me more?
A smart guy once told me, he said, there's no testimony without the word test.
Oh, and that's the thing. Is so many things people. Sorry, we're getting scripture stuff here, but that's the thing. Is everybody thinks that everything's going to be good. You give your life to Christ. You give your life to God. Oh, it's going to be peaches and cream. No, it's painful because we have an enemy. I mean, I have some stuff going on here in the background at work that I did the right thing, maybe not in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
I helped somebody, and I wasn't really smart about it, but I'm getting punished for it. And I'm just going to, for the sake of not broadcasting this, it could end up really badly for me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I did what I thought was right, and I helped somebody. And are you willing to pay the price to be good?
Yeah, I know several people that have been in a very similar situation to that. And I'd rather be, oh man, I'd rather be in a situation where I do right by God and do right by like my moral, like, hey, I did the right thing. I prayed about it and I did the right thing. I'd rather be in those shoes than I let that person get like tumbled. You know what I mean?
Now, I'm curious about you growing up. Did you have integrity or were you sneaky?
I was sneaky.
I was sneaky.
I was so sneaky, dude.
Yeah.
I was, and I struggle with that with my own kids, to be completely, I've got
thank you for saying that. Cause I'm working on that with my son. My son literally just told my wife, yeah, I sometimes lie to people to tell them that they didn't do it right when they did, because I don't want them to think that they're better than me.
Yeah.
I was like, what? Where'd you get this?
That's a raw emotion. I'm honestly proud of you for having a son that you can have a candid conversation like that with, and that he will open up to you, because that identifies that there is a ton of trust between him and you.
He told it to his mom.
Oh, well, between him and his mom, right?
But we did have the conversation.
Yeah.
I told him, I said, bud, one, I'm proud of you for telling us that. Disturbed, but proud. I'm thankful that you trust us enough. But this is again that spot of the conversation we were having before we even turned on the mics here, is one of the things we're doing constantly is modeling.
Yeah.
The advice dad is the guy that just lays down a hail of bullets of advice. Do
Mm-hmm.
this, don't do this. But a true dad models,
Mm-hmm.
which, before I forget about that, I want to make sure we talk on that topic of the modeling. So much of, as a dad, when you turn dad, when you go dad and you want to be a dad, there's a lot of people out there that miss this whole boat.
It's a blind spot for us, man. Huge.
It's like, what do you like? My dad. My dad. He still isn't there.
Yeah.
He's never told me I love you. And okay, so one of the things is, I was talking to a friend of mine, do you still have that wound? I was like, I don't think so, but I bet there's still something there. It's still needing to be healed. I took my kids up, because he's in poor health. I took my kids up to Wisconsin to go see him. And as we're leaving, because I tell my kids I love them every day, constantly.
Right.
Because I don't believe you can't have something you've judged in somebody else.
To the point of annoyance, I feel like sometimes with my own kids, I'm like, I love you, good night, and I'll go in and kiss them goodnight, and then I'll hear, Dad, I love you, and I'll be like, I love you too.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah, this is getting annoying, but at the same time, it's awesome.
But
I'd rather have that than the opposite.
Yeah, but here's the blind spot: is I judged my dad for being an alcoholic. I became twice the alcoholic he was.
Yeah.
I judged my dad for not telling me he loves me. And if I don't see what the opportunity is there and say, oh, this is what I'm going to have, I'm going to draw that exact same thing into me because I trained with my nephews. I can tell my nieces, hey, I love you all day long. I had to train with my nephews. Mm-hmm. Max, I love you. Cooper, oh man, I mean, it tears me up right now. I love you because in this masculine society, that's seen as weakness. Yeah. And I don't agree with that. But anyway, so
not anymore, boss. We're gonna change the narrative on that.
But like with my kid, I want him to know. I can easily tell my daughter, my son, it is easy because I've maintained that. Yeah. But I'm modeling, hey, this is normal. Okay, so going back to that story of visiting my dad, as we're walking out, my son and daughter naturally, Grandpa, I love you. And he goes, love you, Faith and Foster. Oh. Okay, maybe you can hear me tremble in the mic here. I almost started crying. I started kind of laughing to myself a little bit as we're going out to the car. Foster goes, Dad, he said he loved us. I was like, I know. Because previous to this, they were probably 5 years old. We were going to a swim meet. And I was just having my normal check-in call with him. Hey, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And I said, hey, Dad, I love you. Faith Foster, tell Grandpa you love him. Love you, Grandpa. Okay. Well, have a great night, guys. Yeah. Hangs up the phone. He can't handle it. And so then I have to have the conversation with my kids. Why didn't he tell us he loves us? Yeah. Again, we can't get into judgment. I said, guys, I'm going to tell you a little story. And I said, I don't think his dad told him that either. But that's why I tell you every single day. Again, we're modeling. I want you to know that I love you every single day. And even though he doesn't have the capacity, I have learned something, and I will have that capacity to tell you that. Yeah. I'm going to change the narrative. I'm going to change. We're generational. We're not living for us. I mean, but that's the other. That's where I was going to go with that. I'm sorry. I'm going right off into it. Is so many dads believe that once they become a dad, that's their number one mission in life. That's not true. You living your best life in your best purpose. I'm not saying it's ego. It's you being the best damn human being you can be in terms of who God intended for you to be. That's what they're going to want to follow. If you put your kids above your faith, above your God, above your spouse, they will ruin everything else because they don't know any different. They're just like any other drug. They will ruin you if you don't have it in the proper perspective. And that's one of the other things I see is like, oh, I'd die for my kids. Yeah, I would too. But guess what? You're not crossing your mom. Your mom brought you into this world. She's above you. And my wife knows if God tells me to do something, I'm going to go do it. If you don't want me to do it, we're going to have this conversation. But if I really honestly feel, and we've never had to worry about it. She's sown amazingly massive gifts. And she says, hey, the only question I always come back is, do you sincerely believe God's asking you that? I can't shake it. So, let's do it. We're in this together. Yeah. I don't cross anything that she says is from God. Yeah. Sorry. We went on all kinds of tangents. Yeah. That was good stuff. Yeah. I think so.
No, I think that's but dude, I think that's the point is understanding, how to give to our children, but in a godly way, right? And what we give our children isn't always tangible things. It's lessons.
Very little of what we give our kids is actually tangible, other than keeping them alive. Yeah,
kids don't need things in order to move to the next phase of their life. They need hard taught lessons, right? And those lessons can come in different ways. And like you referenced Advice Dad, I seriously struggle with Advice Dad. I always have, that guy. And I've been a parent for 21 years, right? Like that's, people often look at me like, you have a 21-year-old son? Yeah, man, I do. And they're like, wow, we've got a 10-year-old kid. We've got a 15-year-old kid.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to turn 50 and I have a 9.5-year-old. Yeah. I've been parenting since I was 18 years old. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I've fallen into the Advice Dad trap so much. And I can tell you that with that, you get more is caught than taught. Yeah.
a really wise man told me that. He said that to me this week. I told him how I was struggling in like this aspect of parenting. And he was like, Nick, more is caught than taught. And I was like, dude, that hits for me, because it's not all the lessons that you preach at them. You know what I mean? It is what you, to your point, it is what you model for them that they see, and they identify you as a good Christian man. Right. And that's unbreakable.
Yeah. So would you rather have your children be smart or wise? Now, okay, I'm
wise.
Kind of pitching that in a weird spot. And the reason I say that is along those same things is it's possible for kids to have knowledge. My kid knows 2 + 2, 3 + 3. I mean, Foster's pretty amazing in his math skills, his reading skills. Faith has amazing people skills, just amazingly different stuff. And yes, they're twins. And but one of the things that I have quickly picked up is that they can know all this information, but it's how to use it in their own lives.
Situational awareness.
Bingo. You jumped the shark there. Situational awareness, but it's also discernment. I use the word discernment as a big one, is saying, okay, wisdom is recognizing the difference and making the right choice.
Yep.
The better choice.
Don't be sneaky. Don't be sneaky.
Don't be sneaky. But knowledge is knowing knowing all these facts. You can go to college and know all these facts and be absolutely stupid in terms of how to apply the knowledge. The advice, Dad, is one of those cases where we're in the moment, oftentimes trying to say, okay, do this and do this, do this. Because we want to help.
This is part of the lesson.
Yeah, this is part of the lesson. Because you can always learn, and this is in the book, is, you can always learn something faster from somebody else than you can on your own experience.
Yeah.
And so, hey, you don't have to listen to me. You want to learn how to do this? I can teach you really fast if you want to listen. But again, I'm going to teach you knowledge, but applying that stuff is in your wheelhouse. So as dads, we are putting a framework together of life that allows them the ability to learn quickly if they want to. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, giving them room to fail and helping them get back up. That really is it. Because if I haven't taught my kids you hit on one of my big ones, situational awareness, but then also how to problem solve. If you haven't learned how to problem solve, you're toast. You are going to be a ward of the state for the rest of your life if you can't problem solve.
Yep.
And that's not what I want for my kid.
Yeah.
So my goal is not necessarily to make my kids smart. I want them wise.
Yeah.
We talk about street smarts and all this. We send our kids off to school to learn all this knowledge. Yet they have, a lot of them come out with no working skill set of how to actually solve the problem.
Yeah. And I think confidence plays into that. Mm-hmm. I think the other thing that is so important that I am so dialed on right now is making sure that my kids know that they're enough, without, like, they're enough on their own, without things, without that they're enough in God's eyes.
Yeah.
By the way,
where you are right now.
Yeah. Where you are, who you are right now, all the things that you have set aside, but who you are is enough. Mm-hmm. And if you could just be organic with your thoughts, have situational awareness, and know in your heart that you're enough, that you don't have to have something else in order to fit in, mm-hmm. that you don't have to have all this knowledge and be the one telling it to fit in. Yeah. But if you just know that you're enough, mm-hmm. in God's eyes, then you're going to be golden, man.
And that's where the whole idea of social media and such, I can't stand social media other than the fact that I remember people's birthdays because of it.
Yeah, I love
but
that.
At the same time, I mean, it is an easy way to reach out in certain cases of ministry, but
there's also a whole bunch of traps there where you can reach out and it's not good.
No, but like the comparison, you're talking about your kids being enough is because they're experiencing comparison. Mm-hmm. One of the things I recognized when I saw those 3 guys, and I've never thought about this. This is really important. This is really intriguing. Those 3 guys weren't 3 different guys. There were 3 different me's. Mm-hmm. when you learn that you are comparing yourself to your true self, that's when it changes. When I compare myself to Nick, my shoulders need to get some more workout here. Or, I compare myself to one of my coworkers who's just killing it. If I could just be like that. The more we compare, is instead of saying,
it's a thief of joy, dude.
It is. Oh, that's good. That's good stuff. But the comparison of, okay, if you see something good or bad about somebody else, this is where that discernment comes in. This is where wisdom comes in. How do you teach your kids to not say, hey, it's good that you're seeing that comparison in them, but you need to recognize how that compares in you, not against them, but it's showing something you want or don't want in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Take them out of the picture. Put the item that you're looking about, not physical, but that quality, characteristic, skill, trait, whatever it is, put that in your world. All right. For me to get to that, is that something that fits into my priorities? And okay, 9.5-year-old, my kids are not thinking about priorities. They're thinking about the next hour of Roblox or something. Oh my gosh. But
we'll get there.
Yeah. I sure, praise God. I hope we'll get there. But the whole idea is compare your current to what it is you think you want or don't want. Is it worth it? Is that what you really want to do? Then let's do it. What's the next steps? Instead of looking at them and realizing what they have, don't have, and comparing yourself to them, compare your current to what you want with that and why. I mean, that's pretty deep. I mean, I think adults struggle with that. But
I struggle with that.
How do you teach your kids that?
Yeah.
But I think you're right on board, is saying you're enough. But I see that you want this. Why do you want that?
Yeah. Does it serve you right now?
Yeah.
Does it serve you well right now?
Oh.
Will it make your life better?
No.
Or will it just scratch the itch of interesting for a little while? What happens after it breaks? Would you replace it?
No.
Is it worth that?
One of the interesting, I've heard a coach say, if you're in management, the worst question you can ever ask is why, because it is condescending of showing that they made a mistake. Why'd you make the mistake?
Mm.
But as we're talking to our kids, okay, it can be the same thing, because like I'll never forget Foster. Just like, why, man? Why did you do that? But I think as we're listening to them and getting them to open up about, hey, I want to be a professional football star. Why? I think that's a great question. Why do you want that? Well, they make lots of money. They're really popular. Okay, so you want to be popular? Well, of course I do. Why? Getting them to understand. Not even understand, but working their own emotions out, because they're not familiar with it like we are. We think everybody knows how to work through this. They don't. Yeah, popularity is a really fun thing, isn't it? Well, yeah, because, I see my friends at schools. Do you know any other popular people that are really famous? Well, like my kids would say, Taylor Swift. Do you know Taylor Swift can't even get out of her house without somebody taking pictures and trying to get her attention, or blah, blah, blah.
Stifling.
Is that what you want? Well, not that. Okay. Or, professional football player. Well, why do you want the money? Well, because then I could buy all these different things. So why do you want all these different things? Well, then I think I'll be happy. Oh yeah. So
that's one of the biggest pitfalls in the world, man, is that things will create happiness. And I think things just, yeah.
So he's a unique pastor down in Texas. His name is Mike Murdoch. And he's big on wisdom. Now, he's eccentric is the best way to say it, but he has a lot of really good sayings. He says, the rules of God allow people to make a lot of money. You can make a lot of money, but he'll never give you your peace without him.
Yep.
So you can have all the things in this world, but no peace. What is it that you really wanted? People think they want fun. They think they want all these things because they think it's going to be happiness. Happiness isn't what you think it is. Happiness is peace and fulfillment. Oh my goodness. My wife and I talked to this financial advisor recently. Okay. And he said something that just blew my mind. So I can't wait to share this. He says, I've been a financial advisor for a long time. I've retired twice. And then I realized I've been chasing success my entire life. And when I took my last hiatus, I realized I was chasing the wrong thing. I thought I was like the dog chasing the car. You get the car, now what? In my world, I was chasing success, realizing too late in life, I was actually chasing significance. My life mattered. My life had a purpose. Success dies with me. I was actually chasing the significance in this world from my life. And so I think as dads, that's the trap we get into is I'm going to find significance in my kids. No, your significance is your life. And one of those, I can't think of the word here right now, but one of the derivatives of that is my kids.
Yeah.
Is my wife. The legacy I leave behind is the significance of my life.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean,
it's heavy stuff.
It is, but all like in a nutshell, that's why I got sober.
Money.
Yeah, exactly. That's why you make drastic change in your life, because you identify, as you did, that what I'm doing is not the legacy that I want to leave behind. If I left this world today and went to go to the next place,
yep,
would I be satisfied with what I've done in this? Like, would I be satisfied? I think God will always be satisfied because you're his children and he's, you know, but I think identifying who you want to be and then making drastic change to get on that track is ideally what we all need help with.
Yeah. I mean, if you think of, like you just said, I think God's going to be happy with me. I think we were made for so much.
Yeah.
But as a dad, if your son grows up and ends up doing a mundane job, provides for his family and all this stuff, he didn't light the world on fire. He didn't do amazing things in this world other than okay, I'm saying that's strange, but he took care of his family in a mundane job and didn't light the world on fire. I think God's going to be very pleased, but at the same time, I think he would be even more pleased if he says, I had so much more for you. As a dad, if my son simply lives life and does it well, like in terms of takes care of his stuff, I'll be thrilled. I'll be happy. If he becomes president of the United States, I'll be so proud. If he goes on to win the Nobel Peace Prize, do all these amazing things, becomes some internationally renowned star, I'm still going to be proud of him. Either way, I'm proud of him.
Right.
But this is the part where I would say our kids deserve us to get the most out of ourselves, just to be our best self. Mm-hmm. Not accept mediocre, accept that best self. Yeah. So like my kids see me going after vision board type stuff. Some of it's stupid, some of it's profound, and they see me going after different things. They see me constantly pursuing. I want my kids to know that life is pursuit. You're either dying or you're living. There you go. And to go back to the drinking, I was dying. I was just dying. I was just pushing the envelope a little faster into death.
I'm with you.
And when you start realizing I have so much more in this life than this, I'm pursuing something else. I don't have space for that in my life. I can't. I don't have space in my world for junk food like that anymore. Why don't I drink a Coca-Cola or two every single night? I don't have space for that because guess what? I am 50 years old and I'm going to take my son up to the Boundary Waters. Hopefully he gets unafraid of mosquitoes. But I'm going to be that. I mean, he's probably going to, 10 years. I'm going to be close to 60. And I still want my son to go, my dad's a badass.
Yeah.
And that's the other side is I didn't realize our parents are just big kids waiting to figure out what the best thing is next to do. They're just older with more experience. I had a young man I visited in jail here this week. He says, man, you guys make adulting look really easy. I was like, yeah, but guess what? For the last 4 years, you didn't care what I thought either. I promised your mom I'd mentor you for a long time, but I'd also promised your mom I'd never pursue. Mentors don't pursue. If you don't care what I think, I'm not going to push it on you. And that's the same thing with our kids. We have responsibility to our kids, but we're responsible to everybody around us. If I see you fall, I have a responsibility to come say, hey, buddy, get back.
Yeah.
You're not my kid, but you're in my sphere.
Yep. Part of your community.
Yeah. And the community is what helps keeps us all together. I mean, that one thing that you might say to somebody might save their life. You never know. And that's where you say earlier about, just showing up sometimes is all you need to do. You don't, I have somebody that she quit smoking here, I think 3-4 months ago. And I said, here's a few little tricks for you if you want. And I encourage her every single time. She goes, 19 years, how do you do it? So,
you find a reason.
I said,
and you keep that reason front and center.
A reason's a really good reason.
Yeah.
A really good way. But motivation, motivation fades sometimes. And so one of the other things is you can't make big decisions in the long term. You have to make that short-term decision.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be really easy on a trip to go to a convenience store, pick up a beer, pick up a pack of smokes. Nobody's going to know. I grew up sneaky. But my conscience now, what I owe to my kids, what I owe to my wife, what I owe to myself, to be that man that I've always wanted to be. Okay, I don't need to win the battle tomorrow. I just need to win it right now.
Yep.
And I think, we just watched a guy do a message. He was from D-Day. He's like 96 years old.
Yep.
Can you imagine getting off a boat in enemy territory where bombs and blowing up and guns and everything else, what our soldiers have gone through?
No.
And stepping out and just doing it anyway. Not having that drink, this is easy compared to that. Nobody's shooting at me.
Yeah.
And so one of the things, sometimes I'll shame myself into saying, I'm not that weak. Are you seriously this weak you can't say no to this? Sometimes you have to shame yourself into it. Yeah, don't tell me that you're not strong enough to not stop in there and get this. Somebody fought and died for your right to be able to do this. Somebody stepped off that boat getting shot at.
Yeah.
You're telling me you're not strong enough for this? Oh, okay, coach. And I sometimes think that's the Holy Spirit. I love a really strong football coach in my brain. I've always gone to that strong personality.
Yep.
For coaching. I want somebody who's going to whip me around.
Well, give it to you straight.
Yeah. Don't mince words with me. Push it.
Yeah.
So, man, we're going all over the board.
Welcome
to my brain.
We've been all over the place today, man. It's been fun. Tell me this, dude. What is your absolute favorite part of being a dad?
Growth. Watching
that's
growth.
Such a good word. Oh man.
Not only in them. Okay, this is going to sound like it's all about me. It's not in me. I'm learning to be. I was listening to one of your past podcasts. Is not the angry dad. Like yesterday, I was making a smoothie.
You struggle in that arena as well?
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
I never thought. I thought I was a happy-go-lucky kind of guy, and I usually am. But I've come to the conclusion I'm pretty wired tight. I had a smoothie. Okay, both the kids are in the kitchen with me. I have a smoothie, and I go to shake the smoothie, and I didn't have that thing screwed down, and it literally went everywhere. And I about lost it. And my kids saw it. I was like, I didn't punch the counter, put my fist on the counter like I oftentimes would. But I came back from it pretty quick. And it wasn't like explosive type of thing, but it's just like, oh, so frustrating.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I guess the growth as a dad, I'm learning a whole lot about patience. But what I love watching is growth. Like this year, I got to talk about my daughter, my baby girl. She is changing some dietary type stuff to prevent some health potential stuff.
Okay.
And it means saying no to all the things that all the other kids get to say yes to. But I'm watching her mental toughness grow. And I love it. But
you gotta be so proud of that.
Oh my gosh. Some days are better than others, but I'm very proud of it because, again, mental toughness. That's one of those key things you need. Situational awareness is important, but it still comes back into what are you going to do about it? You have a threat. It's threatening your family. If you're not mentally tough, you don't have the chutzpah to come in and say, I got to take care of this.
Right. You're
going to flee when you should have fought.
Yeah.
But we were going to her softball game, and I had, don't you love those one-on-one moments with your kids?
Oh, yeah.
So we're driving to the game, and I said, are you excited? She says, actually, I'm kind of scared. I'm nervous. What are you nervous about? And I'm a big fan of, I want to draw it out. Advice Dad just tells you.
Don't be nervous. Here's why. You got this.
Yeah, you got
right?
this.
No.
Okay, so why are you nervous? I want them to learn how to get through it.
Yeah.
She said, well, what if I don't do a very good job? I said, yeah, what happens if you don't? You won't be proud of me. Okay. Yeah. I said, baby, if you simply do your absolute best today, and if you've never seen a movie called Facing the Giants, you can YouTube it, Facing the Giants, death crawl scene. That right there is any parent, I just want your very best. Have you ever seen it?
Mm-hmm.
I told my daughter, I said, if you are out there doing your absolute best, just give me your very best. I'll be so proud. And you don't have anything to worry about it. I said, because whether you catch the ball, you hit the ball, I don't care. I can tell when you're doing your best and when you're not trying. I'm your dad. I can see this stuff. If you do your very best, I'll be so proud, no matter what.
Yeah.
And I'm going to try to paint the word picture in here, but they put my daughter. So she's not like a softball phenom by any means. She can throw the ball pretty well. And she's playing in the backyard with Ari and Finnegan and the neighborhood. They put her on first base. I was like, okay, as a dad, I'm going, uh-oh. And they, the first hit, they throw it to her. She catches it, gets the girl out at first. My jaw drops. And I watch my daughter go from scared to confident.
Yeah.
She holds the ball up and with a big smile, looks at us, and she's like, yeah. And then she goes from just standing there on first base to she's hunched over with her glove ready to go. I mean, she looks like a ninja ready to go. And she proceeds to catch 5 out of the next 6 balls that come at her.
Confidence just pouring out of her.
Confidence coming out of her, and she can't stop. And then she gets up the bat, and she starts to become confident at the batting. She struck out once this year, but maybe twice. But otherwise, she got up to that bat. She looked like she was ready to crush somebody.
Yeah,
I was so stinking proud of her.
Yeah.
So the original question, growth. I love watching the growth. I think that's my favorite part of it, is watching the growth in my wife. As we never wanted kids. We changed our mind. And to watch her grow as a mom is one of the most amazing things. Watching me learn about my dad and respect him now more so because I'm realizing the capacity there. So
yeah.
So there's a book out there called Wild at Heart, the old book.
It's right over there.
Well, how about that? And one of the things in there, they talk about the wounding of the father. And sometimes it's just recognizing, I think as a dad, you owe it to your kids to figure out the issues you got with your dad.
I've got some.
Guys talk about daddy issues with girls.
Yeah.
We're going to get real now. We talk about the daddy issues that girls have. Men have daddy issues. And one of the things that it came out of that book was he says, sometimes you have to recognize that your parents are just big kids. They don't have the capacity to do some of the things you're asking them to do because they've now gotten through it. You have a choice. If you've seen it, now you have a choice to fix it. And for me, they talk about the blessing of the father.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, you are enough. Like what do you do with your kids? You're intentional about it, which is amazing.
Yeah. So I wrote this down the other day.
Please.
I wrote this down the other day. Don't let the projection of your earthly father distort your vision of your heavenly father.
It's tough. That's easy to say.
Because we often do. And I'm a man and I have my shortcomings as a father, and I have put those on display for my entire life. And at this point in my life, I know my dad has his shortcomings as a father, right? But
you love him despite those.
But I love him despite those.
Yep.
But that doesn't get in my way of what I see of my heavenly father.
Yes.
As to like, I don't see those shortcomings in God.
No, I don't believe he has any.
No.
Now I wish that in some cases he'd protect me in a little bit differently, but at the same time, that's not how this works.
Right.
He's my dad.
Right.
Yeah. One of the things that I'll never forget, and this was, you talk about those poignant moments with your parents. I flew out to Salt Lake City, Utah to pick up a car and drive it home. And it was a little Subaru WRX with, street tires, summer tires. And I drove it back to Waterloo during the winter. Ran into a snowstorm and all this stuff. Ended up in Wamsutter, Wyoming at some podunk little hotel. Barely made it there. And I called my mom up, telling her, hey, I'm okay. I'm in a blah, blah, blah. And that was about 22, 23, maybe. Yeah, probably 23. And I called my dad. My mom's thankful. Oh, thanks for calling. I'm so glad you're okay.
Right.
Blah, blah, blah. Called my dad. Now, in that same stat where I said my dad was efficient, he says, well, I appreciate the call, but you didn't need to. I was like, well, I just wanted to make sure you knew I was okay. And this is going to sound harsh, but this was the blessing that I think I'd always been waiting for. I didn't realize it at that moment. And he's never really referred to me like this. Son, if I haven't raised you to take care of yourself by now, no amount of worry on my case is going to fix it. You know how to take care of yourself. I wasn't worried. Okay, so I'm thinking about this. It's like, okay, that's my dad saying, you know what you're doing. You're good. You're fine. You're enough. Perhaps he didn't mean it like that, but that's how I took it. He says, yeah, you're enough. You know how to do it. I wasn't worried.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad he added, though, I wasn't worried. I mean, granted, if it's my kids, I would have been. But at the same time, should I be? I've raised you to be, I'm going to swear for a second, I've raised you to be a grown-ass adult.
Yep.
Congratulations, you are.
Yep.
You're going to be fine. And if you're not fine, I know you'll fix it. If I can come in to help you, I will. But right now, it's on you.
Yeah.
And I think as sons and daughters and such, I think the biggest thing is to just recognize, like you said, is you're enough.
That's what we have to tell our kids. We have to make sure that they know that. Otherwise, they lack the confidence. Yep. And they feel like they're not, and they have to measure up to something different, but they're already enough.
But this is why, again, and I watch from the outside. I'm proud of you for what you're doing with this. Yeah. You are enough, but you still have a pursuit of, I want to make it better. I want to make more. Mm-hmm. I'm just pursuing what God has put in me. I am enough, but God has more in store for me if I will simply pursue what he's asked me to pursue. You're good enough. Faith, if you want to continue to go into softball, just do your best.
Yeah.
Pursue it if you want to.
Yeah. But
you're good enough. I mean, you are perfect as you are, but I'd love it if you pursue it further, whatever it is in life. And that's why I say the fault of sometimes is putting our kids or our spouses or anything else above God in our lives. And I think that comes back in that whole, are you the best human that God has intended for you? If you answer yes, I'm sorry. You're wrong. If you have breath in your lungs, you can get better.
Yeah, that's right.
Because it's always better.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as status quo. Everything changes. You're either changing for better or you're changing for worse. If you're breathing, you better be changing for better.
Yeah.
Push it. And but know that I think that's that dichotomy of I'm in a good spot, but I want to be in a better spot.
Yeah.
Be happy in who you are. That's the piece. But have that burning desire that I want to pursue something even further.
Yeah.
I'm learning to fly planes. I'm going to be starting.
Yeah, that's incredible.
So I got my license about 2 years ago for VFR. And yesterday I took up somebody just to Prairie du Chien real quick. They'd never been in a small plane before, so I took them up there. It was so much fun, and I'm realizing how much I've learned. And then I'm getting ready to go into IFR, which means I can actually touch a cloud. And I'm realizing how much I don't know. And I fly with these guys that know what they're doing all the time. It's just amazing to hear how far it goes. Every rabbit hole you go down to is really deep, it feels like. But I think the whole thing is I don't know why I'm doing it, but I feel like there's a reason for this pursuit. I'll find out someday, I believe. But always learn, always pursue.
There's a quote that I don't know exactly who said it, but I wrote this down one time. And your pursuit of becoming a pilot is like, I think it plays here. It says all people want to find their passion, but you don't find your passion. You create it. You create it by getting good at something. And to get good at something, you start by doing something that you suck at. Then you get good. Then you like it. Then people ask you how you found your passion. And your answer will always be by starting when you sucked and never giving up.
I love that. Because flying has become a little bit like a drug.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. Right now, I'm running into an interesting stage in my life. I've played the trumpet since I was 4 years old. I'm pretty good. I'm really good. But in this area, there's a lot of people that are much better than me.
Yeah.
Much better because they actually keep playing.
Yeah.
I want to be good again. I picked up guitar here several years ago because I was the worship leader at church and I couldn't stand the fact that I was out of control because you can't lead worship, the in-between without playing some sort of an instrument. You can't do it from trumpet. So I learned how to play. I jokingly say the Holy Spirit taught me how to play guitar with an iPhone. Here's how you play this chord. And I just started putting it together. My son's like, "Hey, Dad, when are you going to get the guitar back out?" Now I'm running into all these things. Is like I have all these different. What an amazing world we live in when I have all these passions. I hated singing. I love singing now. Playing the guitar, playing my trumpet. I love camping, survival style. You go out with a knife and a bottle of water.
Yeah, that's badass.
I love that. I haven't done it since my kids were born.
Have you been to the Boundary Waters, Steve?
Please tell me you're joking.
You've been in quite a bit then, yeah?
I usually go every single year. This is the first year in a long time. The only year I missed otherwise was my adventure buddy. And I think one of the other things that we haven't talked about is have a man in your life that challenges you and will call your crap to the table every time.
Yeah, you need an accountability partner.
Yeah.
You need somebody that is not impressed by you.
Yeah. One of the guys that he's become a brother to me. We are very different. So different. His name is Ryan, but he's been an adventure buddy and a brother to me in many different ways. One of the things on my list is I wanted to climb a mountain. He goes, "Well, buddy, let's go do it." So we drove out to Leadville, Colorado, and climbed within a day and a half of being out there. We climbed Mount Elbert, the second tallest mountain in the lower 48 at 14,445 feet. At 13,000 feet, I was done. I was ready to give up. A good man in your life is that guy that's going to say, "Hey, come on, man, let's go get this. Let's go do it. I know it's tough. I know it hurts. Let's go do it. Yeah, I know you're stopping every 10 feet. We're finishing this. Finish it, man." And he's the guy that I'll call if it's a convenience store stop that I'm looking at. doesn't happen very often anymore. But anyway, but no, I've gone up the Boundary Waters about 16 years, and I'm going to put this in recorded memory is for my 50th. I've already kind of told my wife I want to go solo. I want to go up there by myself and do it. I've gone up there 16 years. I've taken, 70 plus year old veterans up through there. I've taken a guy, another veteran who was 8 months outside of open heart surgery. I've taken, people that don't do camping, and I'm not the hey, let's lay back and do some fishing kind of guy. Oh, I also went with my brother. He's the one who started me on this.
Yeah.
We didn't talk for almost a year afterwards because of it, because we got in such a big fight. But
oh man.
But the adventure junkie in me loves that stuff, and I love the challenge. Actually, that's the funny thing is, I love a challenge. As you were talking through this, that's the thing I'm just noticing is I love a challenge. I was petrified to fly a plane. I mean, I'm afraid of heights, but I'm not like afraid of heights in a plane. But if you say, hey, Steve, you're going to fly that plane. Oh my gosh, that's scary.
Yeah, I think for me, it would be like, okay, I can fly that plane, but you want me to take off and land the plane? That's where I would like, if you get me up there, if you got me up there, I'd be like, I'll take the controls for a little bit and not mess this up. But if you said, hey, you need to take speed to takeoff, ascend, level out, take it down without messing it up, and put it on the ground, there is 0% chance that I'd be like, yeah, I could do that someday.
Yeah. And that's the exact same thing I said. I remember, like you said, you take something you suck at, but you look at flying and you're like, wait a second. Somebody all these people learned from somewhere.
Yeah.
They all sucked. None of them could land at first.
Right.
But they learned from somebody who could.
Yeah.
Apprenticeship. And so Travis Knutsvig.
Yeah, I know.
He's the guy who started me out and took me through a lot of my flight stuff. And I will never forget, he said, there's 3 different things, but the one thing that he says, why don't you want to? And I told him I was afraid. He says, well, after I'm done with you, you won't be afraid because you'll know better. And I'll never forget, the other part of it was early on the train, he said, hey, Travis, can we do some hot laps around the airport? Said, what do you mean hot laps? Well, when you're on the ground, you're steering with your feet. And getting that plane up to it's about 65 knots is where you have rotation, where you start to pull that thing off the ground. When you're up around 60 knots, 65 knots, you're going about 70, 75 miles an hour, driving with your feet, not your hands. That's kind of scary. And so I said, I want to do some hot laps. Let's go a little faster and learn how to do it. Because that day I'd almost actually drove the plane at slow speeds off the runway. Not good. No bueno. Then I got comfortable with that. And then it was, okay, now we got to land the plane. And, I started getting comfortable with that. But in that last moment where it's the most important, I would give up. Fix it. And he'd fix it. I almost threw my logbook out when I took the flaps out completely. Slow flight, 50 feet above the runway probably. And I took all the flaps out because I was going to do a go around. Anybody listening that knows anything about aviation, that's my lift. And instantly we're dropping. He grabbed onto that yoke, put that thing nose down, counterintuitive to what I would have ever done. Nose down, and basically didn't touch the ground, as I recall, but skidded along that,
Oh my gosh.
I never swore so much in my life. And he said, don't you ever touch those flaps with disrespect again. All right. I've never touched those flaps like that ever since. I have a healthy respect, because he says that is the kind of stuff that will kill you and you'll never see your family again. Is that what you want? Nope. Then learn. Yeah. And all these different things I keep coming back into, as a parent, there's certain times advice, Dad, is advice, Dad. Don't you ever touch those flaps like that again. Yeah. Son, don't you lie to me. I told my son here just a few weeks ago, he lied to me about brushing his teeth. So, son, if you're going to lie to me about brushing your teeth, you're going to lie to me about something a lot bigger. That means nothing to me. And you lied to me about it. And then it came back up again here recently. We were driving home and said, you brushed your teeth this morning? Yep. I said, you promise? Yep. You sure?
I'm going to
No.
check the toothbrush when we get home.
No, I didn't get to that. I said, are you sure? And he goes, no. I was like, buddy, I'm holding my temper right now. I'm really upset. That hurt my feelings that you would lie to me about something so small. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. This is where it really. What are you going to do in that moment?
Yeah.
And I continued to come back on the side, and I say, this is going to cost you. This is going to hurt.
Yeah.
This is going to cost you.
Yeah.
I didn't spank him or anything like that.
Dude, those are the moments for me where I learn almost more about myself, because it's like, oh, you're really challenged right now. And there is no right or wrong answer. You're the administrator in that situation, and you get to make the choice as to what you teach your child in those moments when somebody lies to him, right?
What's
like he lied to you.
thing to a guy. There's one core element to, I think, every man: respect.
Yeah.
We see love in the form of respect. I think a lot of women, and this is from some books I've read, I'm not saying this is my thought. I think a lot of men recognize love through respect. Like if your wife disrespects you in like how she's talking to you or something like that, I think that was on one of your past ones, is the empathy. That was the empathy when I did see that. You feel slighted. You don't feel as loved. But at the same time is when you, as guys, if we go into that dark spot, it's like, hey, you disrespect me. So, all right, I'm an introvert. I'll go back into my little hole, do my little thing. And, I'll pout.
That creates conflict though, right? Because the expectation has not been met. You did not, my expectation was that you'd be honest with me.
Yeah,
and when you weren't,
that you talk to me with respect. Yeah. I mean, because it's whether your kids or your wife, everybody around you. If you disrespect me, I don't think you care about me.
Yeah.
Now, for most women, it is different. I'm not even going to pretend to know what that exactly is. But for guys, it's respect. Man, been married 15 years. I still don't understand completely at all. But so with my son lying to me about brushing his teeth, so I brought him aside and said, okay, look, I was sneaky. I was a sneaky kid. We were sneaky kids. I said, you're not going to outsneak me. I'm smarter than you. I know you don't think so. Trust me. I have traps in that bathroom that you don't know anything about.
Dude, I told my son
traps.
I told my son the other night, I said, hey, so when you were in your room or whatever, were you like, you said I asked you if you got your 20 minutes of reading done. And he was like, yeah, I did. I was like, oh, that's funny, man. I was like, because I think the room was dark. Like I saw the room was like dark the whole night. And I was like, so you did your reading or whatever in there? He goes, no, I did. And I was like, you weren't just like over there, like on your phone or whatever. Like you weren't just like on your phone. He was like, no, I read my book. I was like, what pages? 36 through 52. Right. I was like, okay, all right. He's like right off the top, right off the lid. Man. Right. And I was like,
your eyes darted to the lower right. I know you're.
And I was like, man, I'm going to have to go check the cameras. He goes, what? And I was like, yeah, dude, I got night vision cameras all over this house. And you just saw the look of like, I'm so screwed.
Yeah.
Like come over him. And I was like, see, trust equity, son, trust equity. Yeah. You need to build trust equity with me. And that is not lying about the little things. It's being honest, even if you know you didn't do it, even if you forgot, even if you got so preoccupied doing something else, being honest with your dad, because trust equity is what's going to allow our relationship to evolve.
Right. Oh, that's great stuff. Like I told him, I said, hey, which do you think I'm going to be more upset over? You didn't brush your teeth or you lied to me? Well, probably the lying. Yep. Is that what you want?
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden, again, that wisdom piece of it, you weren't thinking through your choices well enough. Okay, I get it. You probably forgot to brush your teeth. You don't care about it yet. But you had a choice to make about lying to me about brushing your teeth. And these two things, you had a solution. And if you would have thought through it, you would have known which was the better option.
Yeah.
As your dad, my job is to teach you which is help you make that better decision.
Yeah.
You made the wrong decision, and now you're going to pay. And I remember he back-talked his mom. We went through a time of back talk. And I said, buddy.
Oh.
And I'm gauging how I say this. I said, your mouth is going to get you in more troubles than anything else.
Yeah.
I can control the pain as a dad in your punishment. I can't control the pain of your poor decisions when I'm not around.
Yeah.
If you're going to talk to your mom like that, it's going to hurt. If you go talk to some of your friends at school like that, it will hurt a lot more. It'll hurt more because they don't have the discretion that I have. I love you. They don't care 2 bits about you, and they're going to beat you senseless for talking like that. You need to recognize everything you're doing has a consequence. I'm training you. I'm training you for these things. As your dad, my job is to train you for when I'm not here so you don't get your A double kicked and you don't, fall for every trick. That you know who you are. You know what you believe. I'm helping you develop that. I don't cause it. I develop it. And I see something amazing in you.
Yeah.
And I think that's the other big thing as a dad is I love who you are, but I see so much in you. I want you to be better because no kid wants to be bad.
No.
They want to be great.
Yeah. Man,
Well,
I feel so bad about this, dude. No, my 4-year-old the other day, he's doing something and it's naughty, right? And I'm like, dude, that's naughty. And that, like, I don't call my son naughty very often. And he's like, his personality, he's a dominant personality, right? He's going to do what he's going to do. But later on, he'll like process like what you've said to him.
You called me naughty.
So like 30, 45 seconds later, like I see him and he just kind of like slows down and he puts his face in his palms and he just like breaks down. And I was like, this whole thing is over. What are you like? What's going on? What's going on? He goes, you said I'm naughty.
We had the exact same.
I don't want to be naughty.
Yeah.
I said, what? Oh man, it was like,
but so,
I felt this big, dude. Like,
okay, so don't let them get in your head, man. They're smarter than you think. They're like little velociraptors. So my son, I said, dude, you're acting like a punk. And he'd had the exact same reaction. Did you call me a punk? I was like, no, I said, you're acting like one, so I'm going to treat you like one. I said, there's a difference. You're not a punk, and that's why I'm not going to let you act like one.
Yeah.
Act like who you are, not a punk. But if I see that punk come out, I'm going to punk it.
Yeah.
And so he's getting better at that. Don't let them accuse you.
Yeah.
So here's the thing: as dads, we almost have to. The moms, I think, are. I mean, we're loving. I love the domestic dad because the whole idea is like, oh, you're a soft dad. You're the. Okay, I'm staying away from some of the other terms. You're a soft dad. You're a softie. Yeah, I'll cry at the drop of a hat about my kids.
That's similar.
And guess what? I'm not sorry. I heard this analogy about this, and I'll try to tell it really fast. That this kid had a snake, small boa constrictor, for most of his life. And as he got older, the snake got much bigger. Now, this snake is massive now. It's like an 8-foot boa constrictor. Whether it's a true story or not, I don't know, but I love the concept. And he came home from college, and they said, hey, your snake is, blah, 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 blah. And then came home and met the snake. And then he came back home for the next fall break or something like that. And the next thing you know, he's like, yeah, the snake's not eating much. Okay. So he's acting funny. So he says, okay, well, I'll come home and I'll take a look. The snake wakes up the next morning. He sleeps with the snake. That's just weird. But he's sleeping with the snake, and the snake is straight right next to him. Can't figure this thing out. And so he says, snake hasn't eaten for weeks. He's sleeping straight next to me. He usually curls up nice and warm. He's straight. Take it to the vet. The vet says, yeah, your snake's healthy. You're all good. He's not coming home with you. Why? By the way, this snake's name is Tiny. He said, well, Tiny is not healthy. You just told me he's healthy. He's not healthy for you. What he's doing is he's preparing to see if he can eat you. Tiny wasn't a problem when he was small. He's 8 foot tall now, and he's a snake. He literally is trying to eat you. He's sizing you up to see if he can fit you in him. What was a small thing for a small time 1 cigarette didn't catch you. 1 drink didn't catch you. 10 drinks didn't get you. 1 pack of cigarettes didn't get you. It was a series of time. It was a series of building up to this point. You fed it, and now you've got to deal with it.
Yeah. Worse hits you in the face fast.
How big do you want that problem to be when you got to solve it?
Yeah.
And if I can, this is where kids don't get it. If you're going to backtalk your dad, you're going to backtalk your employer, and it's going to suck. Mm-hmm. Okay. You're going to have to learn some humility, some respect, all this kind of stuff. Is all these different things. We're attempting to be the guardrails. As a dad, we're the guardrails. We're not advice dad. We're the guardrails.
Yeah.
Moms, dads, we're all the guardrails of our kids. I want you to turn into this person that you want to be. My goal is to keep those guardrails out there far enough.
Hey, when you get too close, bump you back. Yeah. Right? Yeah. We're bumping them back.
Like I said, they're velociraptors. Use the shock therapy. But I remember Gary saying this. You want them to be their best person.
Yes.
Not who you want them to be. My goal is to just prevent them from going in. I don't want them to develop a tiny later on. Again, I was modeled that massive parties with massive amounts of alcohol, people puking drunk was normal. That guardrail didn't exist for me, so I fell into it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not his fault. He didn't know any better. I know better now, so I'm going to prevent it.
Yep.
Same thing with the addictions and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Roadblocks, technology, it's an addiction.
It is, straight up. Yeah, there's no denying that. I know what addiction looks like personally.
Yeah.
Like very
right.
Like I have a very intimate relationship with addiction.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. We talk daily.
And cell phones, technology, video games. And by the way, video games are designed in a way that to be addictive.
Oh,
to argue with me on how addictive they have been designed to be, and I'll like we can talk about that all day. But that's
my kids go, Daddy, why did you take that one game off your telephone? I said, God told me to. Because what do you mean? I was like, I took all the games off my phone because okay, I thought I remember you guys talking about this. Angry Birds. When you catch yourself at any moment going to Angry Birds, I'm just going to get 3 stars in every level.
Yeah, man.
You just start maxing it out. Or what was the other one? The one that was it wasn't most recent. I mean, it was the most recent one, but it was a while ago.
Yeah.
It was like Mob Control. It was so stupid.
That Candy Crush, all those things.
Candy Crush was another one. Pokemon Go. This is how bad game theory is, or good it is, or whatever you want to say it. I started Pokemon Go because I saw this marketing craze. It's like, how can you attach to this? How could you utilize this? I want to be able to utilize this for my business to help bring business in.
Mm-hmm.
Well, only one problem. I got too close to it.
Yep.
And then I got hooked on it. Next thing I know, I'm walking the dog so I can get steps in. It's like, this is so stupid. And not only that, but now I'm ashamed of the fact that I just got addicted to something. And now I've got this own little secret life playing Pokemon Go for a few,
that's
weeks.
taking time away from your wife, away from your kids, away from your work, away from like all these other things that are more productive to do in your life. Yeah.
So again, modeling. My kids saw me erase every game that I would do like that off my phone because I said, I will not have anything control me like this.
Hey, are you going to let
say that as I'm holding my coffee?
Yeah. Are you going to let your kids have like social media and that stuff?
I
don't know. Are they old enough to have, do they have phones yet?
No, they have gizmos. So there's a like watch that has a phone on it.
Yep.
It's more of a tracking device.
Yep. True story. We need those.
Yeah. I hope to keep them from it.
Yeah.
I don't know that I will be able to, but the thing is social media is not going away.
No, it's not.
It's never going to.
And they're gonna look for other people who have it to try to find trends on what's cool and what's not. And if you don't give it to them, you're even more pickled because then they're seeking validation, but they don't know what validation looks like.
Yeah. I'm watching a buddy of mine who had a very short leash growing up. very short.
Yeah.
He never had to make the decision because it was never available to him.
Yeah.
And so I see holding back social media, and I'm weighing this as I'm saying it. I see holding back social media as hampering them in some ways. I want them to know how to handle it. If they don't even have to work at it, learn how to handle it, I've not actually taught them anything. Like, if I pretend smoking and drinking doesn't exist, when that gets to that time, when they're going to look at it, they don't know anything about it. I want my kids to know, hey, they know it. They know that, some of their family members drink. Mom and dad don't. They know that mama's only had one drink in her entire life. They know daddy used to drink a lot.
Yeah.
They know why I don't now.
Yep.
And so for their standpoint, they have seen multiple phases of this. So they will eventually one day get to make that decision. I hope that they make the good one.
Yeah.
But again, if they don't, it's not my my responsibility.
I feel like as a sober parent, you've laid the foundation for them to see this is what success looks like.
I sure hope so.
This is what good looks like.
Yeah.
I want to be that.
Yeah.
And you've modeled. So I guess that's in closing. That's always one of my last questions is, you struggled with smoking and alcohol when you were younger. You got married, you found your faith. You've always had your faith, but you deepened your faith.
Reality of it.
Yeah. You become a parent. What is the biggest mess that you've cleaned up? Because the podcast is Domestic Dad Cleaning Up the Mess, right?
Oh.
So what's the biggest mess that Steve Schneider's cleaned up in the choices that you've made in sobriety and parenting and faith?
That's a great question. So I always come back to that one day, July 2nd, 19 years ago, which would make that, was it 2005? Yeah, 2005, July 2nd, when my entire world fell apart around me and I was humiliated. But the amazing thing was it wasn't me cleaning up the mess. It was allowing me to put my ego aside, put my pride aside, and say that I don't have this. I need help. And that's something I've seen and heard on lots of your podcasts. I need help. And to actually be man enough, because here's the thing, men are prideful. Man enough to be able to say, I need help.
I admit it.
And admit it. I mean, as I recall, that's some of the AA stuff. You got to admit this stuff. You got to admit the problem.
I think that's like step one. I've never done I've never worked the 12-step program, but I think that's step one. I got a problem.
I got a problem and I need help. Those two things together changed my life, and subscribing to the right help, because the people that put you into the problem or watched you go into the problem without saying, hey, bud, those are not your help. They were the people that allowed you to go into it. You'll know real quick which ones are the ones, because they're the ones they started disappearing along the way.
Yeah.
But I'd say July 2nd, 2005, when that all happened, that was the lowest part of my mind of where I can see that I've been. I asked God to come in and clean up my mess. And then the most amazing thing later on, about nearly 30 days later, he gave me a glimpse and a vision of what it could be. And that's where I think the real gold of cleaning up the mess is. You don't want to clean up a mess that you don't like the result of it.
Right.
If you think that your room or your world is absolute garbage, it won't matter if you clean it up. It's still going to be garbage. Just clean garbage now. But when you get a vision for what it can look like, what your world can be, that's when you have there's I don't want to say a destination, but you have a direction, because you're like, oh, I can clean this up and it will be good.
Yeah. I can make progress here.
Yeah. I literally saw scorched earth on July 2nd.
Yeah.
On the 30 days later, when I met my wife and I had that vision of those three guys, I saw beauty.
Yeah.
I saw beauty beyond belief. I saw, that colorful pasture, whatever you want to see.
Yeah, vibrant.
I saw life, good, peaceful, beautiful. I didn't see scorched earth anymore. And so often we get to that point of saying, one of the challenges, you run into that, okay, I'm done with this. And you leave it at scorched earth. You have to get the vision. And I don't know exactly how that happens.
Yeah, I do. You have to say, God, I'm done.
Yeah.
And then he has to be like, good, now I can begin.
Yeah. And
right?
If you don't
because once you take your hands off the wheel.
Yeah. And it sounds so easy. But it's kind of, okay, this is the same thing I have with the church. And sorry, we're in conclusion here. But this is the same thing I have with the church is we're so excited about the transaction of salvation.
Yeah.
That doesn't excite me. It does. I'm more excited about, I don't want somebody to cross the threshold of my house. I'm just using this as a metaphor of the church. If somebody crosses the threshold of my house, salvation, they're still one step away from getting out of my house. No, I want to see the transformation in your life that is possible. Are you okay with just being saved? No. I want to see the transformation of your life into something beautiful that you never even realized you could have, because God wants more than you can even think or imagine. Think about the most amazing thing your world could ever look like. God has more for you than that. I had the desire of just simply getting married. I got married to an amazing woman of God that is successful, beautiful, adventurous, all these things. I never believed that this woman is even possible. I never knew I was going to have kids. I have 2 kids, a boy and a girl. I never even thought that would be possible. I am living a dream.
Yeah.
That I never even...
Because you gave it to God, dude.
Because I'm never worthy. I never thought worthy of it, and I never was. But he says, I love you. And that's the same thing as our dads, as being dads, as I look at it as from the fathers. Son, you're worthy. I love you. I want you so inspired by what I have for you and what I want to see for you that you're going to pursue it with everything you got. And so that's where I remember talking to an older guy. He said, my best years, best decade, my 80s. Second best, 70s. Third best are my 60s. Because the closer I got to understanding who I was and my purpose, the more I moved in it.
Yeah.
Because I spent way too much time figuring out who this was.
It's called thriving, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's where my passion lies, is the transformation of my life to be what God has created it to be. And I just know that if I'm working on myself, the relationship with my wife, the relationship with my kids, the relationship with my friends, my coworkers, you name it, despite being accused at work, despite whatever happens here and there, I keep on pursuing to where I believe I'm supposed to be going. God's got it.
Yep.
If I take responsibility for it, I'm going to mess it up.
Yeah. Amen.
Hey, that's good stuff, man.
Right on.
Thank you.
Thank you.